What are we starting with? Tony Hinchcliffe?
Yeah, we got Tony at a Trump rally.
Tony was on Bill Maher this week, and I saw some people, like I saw Too Lazy to Try, saying like Tony embarrassed himself with Bill Maher, and Bill Maher was laughing at him. That was not my takeaway from the interview. I thought it was fine. There were a couple funny moments, like Tony seemingly not knowing what Appalachia was. He's like, "What do you mean the?" But the way it's said, the way Bill Maher says it, I think it was a little confusing. I think people were like ragging on him for no reason there. I had a different takeaway. I didn't think he embarrassed himself on the podcast. I think that podcast is a show where he's supposed to get high and drunk. Go look at Richard Dreyfuss on that show. So I think it's supposed to be a little silly. But there was one moment that really stood out to me, and it's Tony's ego has gotten out of control. If you remember, when Anthony Jeselnik was taking shots at all these guys, I said, now there are some things he got right. And one of those things he got right was that Tony's ego, it's insane. I don't believe that he can be like this. And I know to a degree, he kind of has to be like this. And I don't mind guys with egos when it's warranted. You know, like Stern was probably the greatest at that, where the problem is, though, like, the title of the king of all media, a bit of an overstatement, but it was somewhat warranted. You could understand why Howard was giving himself that title. With Tony, the pomposity has reached such unbelievable heights. Go ahead and listen to what I'm talking about. If you remember, the Trump rally caused a bit of a dust up where Tony got in a lot of trouble for his Puerto Rico joke. I, as many others did, defended him, said, it's silly, you're mad at nothing, he's a comedian making jokes, who gives a shit? And I always thought Tony was there kind of for his own brand, to raise awareness about Tony Hinchcliffe and kill Tony. But this is the actual reason Tony went to that Trump rally that caused so much news.
Can you imagine?
Oh, you opened for the Trump rally.
I went up after the goddamn national anthem.
But did you do it because you're a supporter of Trump, or just because it's an opportunity and a paycheck? Was it a paycheck?
No, it wasn't a paycheck. I did it literally to hopefully, get some, hopefully, if only 10,000, not to mention 100,000, maybe 200 if we're lucky, actual people to vote for him. Yeah.
Oh, so you did want people to vote for Trump?
Yes.
And by the way, I don't give a shit if Tony likes Trump, voted for Trump, good for him. The crazy thing about that statement, he's like, I thought, by me doing the rally, maybe, fingers crossed, 200,000 more people would vote for Donald Trump. Are you insane, Tony? What about your act would change minds? First of all, you're already preaching to the choir. You're going to a Trump rally, talking to people that are already voting for Donald Trump. I don't understand how much difference any of those make anyways. To me, I thought Tony was going. I think he supports Donald Trump, and good for him. I didn't realize he was going to change minds. And this is where comedians really start to get crazy, is when they believe their own bullshit. And you've seen this with Chappelle. Like, Chappelle thinks he is one of the great philosophers of our time. And, like, we're allowed to call you that. But when you start believing it about yourself, that's when it gets crazy. And I even want to say, like, if Joe Rogan said this, it wouldn't be nuts to me. Because I think people are going to the Joe Rogan experience for some level of insight, whether it's like they like the guests that he's talking to, even maybe they like Joe's opinions, whatever. That's what they're going there for. Tony roasting Hillary Clinton is not going to make people go, oh my God, it was right there in front of me all along. I'm going to vote Republican now. Like, what a psychopath this man has become. And this is what I'm saying, where like it has to be warranted when you have that level of ego. Like, if he talks about how popular his show is, that's great. The idea that he thinks he's like a political influencer now, that's the danger. You heard people talking about like the danger of all this stuff. Luckily, I don't think any fans believe it. I don't know how many fans are like, oh yeah, I vote based on who Tony Hinchcliffe likes, what rallies he plays. So it just so happened this same week when I was thinking about Tony's ego exploding, our friend Unique, Kyle, Scion Z, he posted a clip, and he titles it, Kalila unloads on Bobby Lee or whatever the fuck he says. Kyle's into clickbait. He posts a lot of these sensational titles, and I'm always disappointed when I click on them. But in the case of this one, I did. I found more interesting what Esther Pavitsky was saying. So Esther used to date Tony back in the, I think, like 10 years ago, or maybe more. So Esther dated Tony, and she ran into him recently, and this was a real conversation she had. So this is from Unique's channel. I wasn't able to find the actual video. They mentioned it being on Patreon, but Kyle says it was free. He says, this was a free video they posted, and you had to go to their Patreon. So I'm not sure where you can find it, but go look for Trash Tuesday, I guess. But this was a little snippet of them talking about Tony Hinchcliffe.
Maybe first year. It just was, he just really has like that Austin energy. I was like, I hope you're saving your money. Because like that's just my nature with him. Because you
opened his bank account for him.
Yeah, like I know what he's like, and when I met him when he was cashing checks at a check cashing place, so I just feel like as a bookend, I like now that he is doing well.
I gotta tell you, that's something admirable about Tony. That's if he was talking about that, if he was talking about coming from nothing, because I know he like his dad wasn't around, like he grew up just in the middle of Ohio. I don't think he comes from any sort of money. So if he was talking about like coming from nothing and building that into being a multimillionaire and a huge success, that I would listen to Tony for. He has some expertise in that. But like if you listen to Tony's political opinions, they're you could find them anywhere. It's like listening to Steel Toe. Get that information just anywhere in the world. It's just vapid, bland political opinions. So this idea that he was going to change 200,000 minds, that's what's crazy. And this is where she goes on to explain the mania that exists in that brain of his.
Well, I'm like, I hope that you're saving your money, And he was like, oh, I'm invested in stocks. And I'm like, okay, I feel like that's not how people like say it, but
that's kind of true.
And by the way, like none of this is shit talking. Like this is all, whatever.
Just recounting
my night. And, but I would like to stay on the Patreon. He goes,
so blame Unique. Sorry.
In Netflix, and they just had their biggest quarter yet.
Who the fuck isn't invested in Netflix?
No, but listen.
Oh my god.
Listen. And he goes, do you know why Kill Tony was on Netflix? And he says stuff like this all the time, and he's been saying stuff like this literally since he was a barista at Starbucks.
Yeah.
Like he has been this exact persona.
He's a perfect example of like delusion does take you far.
And like never change. Like, and so for that reason, like I can't ever hate on how he is, because it's like he's been like this day one.
The self-belief.
Yeah.
Tony believes the 2-hour episode of Kill Tony being on Netflix is why Netflix had their biggest quarter ever. It was, listen, we talked about the Kill Tony episode. I thought it was cool that it was on there. I thought it was a fine episode of the program. Again, I don't think it changed lives. It's so crazy that he believes that. I'm so curious to see where this goes, because a brain like that, it's not just going to be satisfied with having one of the biggest podcasts in the world. He's going to do something. He's going to run for office. There's going to be some ridiculousness that comes out of Tony Hinchcliffe. He's not just going to be like, okay, I have the successful podcast that's doing really well. There will be a next level where he loses his mind. Netflix got his biggest quarter ever because of him. I didn't even hear that many people talk about it. People were like, oh, it's cool. But I think people were kind of underwhelmed. They were like, oh, I wish Kyle Dunnigan was on the whole time instead of bringing Segura in for no reason. Like, don't make us bash the show now, Tony. I thought it was good. It was whatever. But that to me is so crazy.
He's Steven Seagal this.
How so?
That's called the Steven Seagal. We played this clip on our show where Rob Schneider tells a story. Everyone knows this on the Stern Lore about how he walked into a trailer and he was waiting for Steven Seagal for an hour, and then Steven Seagal comes out from the back and he's like, "I just read the greatest script of all time." And Rob Schneider was like, "Oh yeah, who wrote it?" And he goes, "I did." And
Oh
so
yeah. I've heard that
he,
story.
he gave us he Seagal'd us. Netflix is afloat because of me.
Yeah, and I've always known he has an ego, and he can be a snippy little cunt on his show at times, but that's fine. I thought that was like part of the role. I thought he was the Simon Cowell of that show. Like he had to be sort of overly nasty to some of the people to make it interesting. I didn't think he always executed it well, but that's what the show is, and it's obviously very successful. But then when I start hearing him saying like, "Yeah, I thought I would change like 200,000 minds. You know, if I'm lucky, maybe 10 or 20,000, maybe 100,000. If I'm lucky, it could be 200,000 votes would shift from Harris to Trump because he told a Puerto Rico joke at the Trump rally."
I think we're sweeping the thing under the rug here that I'm thinking about is I can totally imagine him like busting your balls as a barista while you're waiting for your coffee for 5 minutes. Like he is that guy. He is the asshole at Starbucks.
But he's very successful at that.
Yeah.
But then to say, "Oh no, I'm like a political influencer now." It's like what Portnoy a couple weeks ago when he said, "I'm going to stop anti-Semitism." So what gets into these people's heads? Like you're very successful. You're not going to change things that have been around for centuries or since the dawn of humanity. Like Tony Hinchcliffe isn't going to suddenly make people go like, "Oh, I've wrong." So many people have talked about each political side, but this one guy making dick jokes up there, now it's going to change the way I vote. Like you have so many people that are talented at that are really good at talking about why Trump is good, why Trump has been slandered in the media for all these years, whatever. You have so many people that's their forte. That's what they're very good at. And that hasn't changed anybody's minds. Everyone's still exactly where they were 10 years ago for the most part. But Tony Hinchcliffe is going to get on the stage and say, "Puerto Rico is garbage." And people are going to be like, "Oh, now I get it. Now I understand the error of my ways."
Go to blindmike.net for everything Blind Mike. Look at me. I did it. Krager's did it.